So you think you're pretty bendy. What are the best exercises for people that are dealing with hypermobility? Should you be doing any mobility exercises at all? Let's find out in today's video. Welcome back to the Rehab channel, where we teach you how to take control of your health. My name is Dr. Craig Lindell, and today we're talking about hypermobility, aka joint laxity, aka you were the super bendy kid at the playground, constantly showing off how well you were able to move your body, how far you can move your joints, or maybe you're the super flexible adult, the yogi, and you just never got stiff. Well, let's start off with the definition of what hypermobility is. So it's either an abnormal or a greater range of motion at any given joint in your body. You're able to move something way further than anyone else. Hypermobility can be at specific joints, or it can kind of be global, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But fun fact, hypermobility can be internally driven or externally driven. Internally driven meaning genes. So what are the genes that got passed down from your parents to you? What did you get in that deck of cards? One of those genes is something called collagen. So collagen is like the ultra structure of cells, kind of keeps everything glued together. And sometimes your collagen can be a little bit weaker, a little bit more elastic compared to others. And that's why you're able to bend a little bit more, because the collagen is always around most of our joints. So if you have more flexible, more forgiving collagen, you can move your joint further. Number two is external. So think of the environment around you. What sports did you do while you were growing up? What movements did you do while you were growing up? Did you do gymnastics where you were constantly stretching, really pushing the extremes of your range of motion, where you were constantly holding end positions? Well, if you're doing that while your skeleton is still maturing, as you grow up, you get older, you're going to maintain those ranges of motion. So how do you know if you're bendy or not? Let's find out. So do you really think you're hypermobile or not? We're going to use the Beighton Score in order to find out how truly hypermobile or how much joint laxity you have. You can take a look at this table here. That's going to be a little bit of summary of it, as well as we're going to have it in the description. But let's go over what the Beighton Score is. So the Beighton Score was developed a few decades ago to really assess hypermobility in children. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it on yourself. Also, the movements are technically supposed to be done passively. So ideally, you're even having someone else do these and your body's completely relaxed. But again, you can still get a good sense of how flexible you are. So there's 5 different movements. 4 of them you're going to do on each side of your body, and then one is kind of looking at a full body motion. The first one is going to be pinky hyperextension. So this 5th metacarpal, relative to your wrist, relative to your hands, how far can you bend this pinky back? And you're going to do it on both sides. It's an all or nothing score. Either you get there and you get a point, or you don't get there and you don't get a point. So ideally, you can go past 90 degrees, and you would look at it on both sides. So I'm just getting to 90. The second one, we're going to be looking at how far can you bend your thumb back. This one always kind of grosses me out because it just doesn't feel good on my thumbs. My thumbs move better this way, not this way. So what do? Straighten your arm all the way out. Rotate your palm out and away from your body. Now grab that thumb, and you're going to try to pull that thumb towards the bottom of your forearm. So if you're sitting here, palms up, you're trying to get your thumb there. I know it kind of sounds crazy, but for some people, this is easy peasy. It's way easier on my right side compared to my left side, but I'm still not getting there. So for me, so far, no points. Now, next one, we're going to be looking at elbow extension. Do you have elbow hyperextension? This is the one that I am very bendy. So I have 10, if not 15, 20 degrees of hyperextension. This is where I have to be really mindful of doing elbow exercises, and we're going to dive into that in a little bit. So hyperextension, got it on both sides, so finally got 2 points. Now the next one is going to be knee hyperextension. What we are looking at is how far can you straighten your knees, and same thing, can they even go a little bit further than all the way straight? So my knees, I get a little bit of hyperextension, a little bit harder to see here, but if I was on a table, if you pulled my foot up, I can get my knee down and I can get my heel to pop off at the table. So now I got 4 points. Now the last one is a forward bend. So I want you to bring your feet together. You're going to bend forward. Try to keep your knees straight. And how far can you reach down? Can you get your palms flat on the floor? No shot that is happening today for me. I just went for a run earlier. I can get my fingers there, but I can't get my palms there. And that's looking at how flexible is your spine as well as your entire posterior chain. It's a score, 0 out of 9. You get 1 point for each side and then 1 point for bending forward. Some would argue that, hey, if you score at least 4 points, you're considered hypermobile. I got 4 points today. I'm pretty flexible, so cool, maybe I'm hypermobile. But others would argue, hey, you got to score at least 7 points out of 9 points to be considered hypermobile. At the end of the day, we're only looking at so many joints. Like even look at my thumbs here. I can bend these further back. My shoulders are pretty flexible. My hips are crazy flexible. So this test gives a little bit of insight, but it doesn't look at everything. And you know yourself, you know your body. You're pretty flexible in some areas versus these tests. Maybe it doesn't highlight how flexible you are. So what do you do now? Do you reconsider what workouts you're doing, what your routine looks like in order to optimize your body and protect your joints? Well, guess what? We're going to dive into some of the best exercises for the most common hypermobile joints in the body, so stick around. Well, here's a fun fact. When we're working with people that are super bendy, that are super flexible, more often than not, they are the people that enjoy stretching, or they like to stretch, or they're constantly telling us that my body feels like I need to stretch and just like showing off their range of motion all the time. What if we told you that your body actually is craving some stability? So when you sit down for a little while, if you're super bendy, you're always stretching, and then your body kind of stiffens up and is trying to avoid going into those extreme ranges of motion. That's why you are perceiving stiffness. So the matter of the fact is, super bendy people actually benefit the most from stability exercises working within those extreme ranges of motion. But I want to make it super clear. Hypermobility is not a problem. Hypermobility does not mean that you are going to have pain. Hypermobility is only a problem if it becomes a problem because you are forcing your extreme ranges of motion, you're constantly stretching, you're constantly pulling on things that don't want to be pulled on, and your body's actually telling you, hey, give me some stability. Make my muscles work in these extreme ranges of motion. Let's make our body work in these super bendy positions. And that's what we're going to show you today. Some simple stability exercises for the most common flexible joints. And let's get started. The first exercises that we're going to begin with are the knee exercises. So if you remember, knee hyperextension is how we determine whether you have hypermobility or not. And we get into this position all the time when we're walking, hiking, running, you name it. Getting our knee all the way straight is actually a pretty functional movement. So we want to strengthen our muscles in that terminal knee extension position, especially if you have knee hyperextension, because that's where your quad is going to get activated the most. So if you're avoiding that range of motion and you're avoiding working your muscles there, then you're not taking full maximal potential of your quads. So what do? Get a band anchored to the wall, get the band anchored ideally knee height. I'm going to be using these Vector equipment that we have here just because it has a nice knee strap and it feels a little bit more comfortable. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have some tension on that band. I'm going to take a step back, and now from here, we're just going to do an exercise called terminal knee extension, where I am going to first let my knee bend, let my knee get pulled to the wall by the resistance. My heel is going to lift up off the ground, and then I'm going to drive that heel down into the ground, flex my glute, flex my quad, and get my knee as straight as possible. And now from there, how do I make it harder? Well, I can balance on one leg, control my knee bending forward, and then really squeeze my quad, get my knee as straight as possible. I'm working holding that knee hyperextension position. I'm not passive. And then this is how you can make it harder. And now how can you even make it harder? You can add a single leg squat where you lower down, you get more knee bending, and then you're going to stand nice and tall, get that knee all the way straight, even drive that other knee up. You can get creative. You can do a little bit of a heel pop, a calf raise, but the goal is you are flexing that quad, working that quad, especially with your knee in that fully hyperextended position. All right, let's talk about shoulder exercises. We haven't talked too much about the shoulder just yet, but the shoulder is really important because it's the most flexible joint in our body. We have crazy amount of range of motion in our shoulder, especially bendy people. They'll show you crazy party tricks with their arms and their hands coming from their shoulder joint that sometimes it creeps people out, right? But it's so important that you have good shoulder strength and shoulder blade strength in those extreme ranges of motion, because the shoulder joint is the most common joint to actually sublux or completely dislocate. So with that being said, we want to strengthen the shoulder in positions of vulnerability. So how do you do that? With band exercises. Everything that I'm showing you today is really involving bands, because bands are nice. They maintain tension the entire time. Whether it's in the starting position or finishing position, that tension is great feedback for the joint, because we have these little mechanoreceptors inside the joint that the more stimulation that they get, which they get good stimulation from tension, the better. Free weights don't always give you that same level of tension in certain positions. That's why we're showing everything today with bands, because bands help to provide more feedback, more proprioception for your joints. So let's dive into it. What shoulder exercises are we going to be doing? I'm going to show you a few variations. So to start, get bands that are about shoulder height, anchored to the wall. You're going to stand facing the wall. Now from there, we're going to do a shoulder I. You can call it a shoulder A if you want, but I like to call it an I, where we're going to pull our shoulder blades back. We're going to focus on good shoulder position. We're feeling all the muscles in between our shoulder blades and behind our shoulders working. That is level 1. Level 2, bring your hands up to shoulder height and do the same thing. If you are super bendy, flexible, take your hands as far back as you can go. Make sure you're not just throwing it back there, but you're working and you're maintaining tension in good position, going all the way back there, nice and slow forward. And again, repeat. Last but not least, next level, we're going to go up to like a Y. So keep your abs tight, look straight ahead, and then bring your hands up overhead. If you can go further back, go further back. Just make sure that your muscles are working in those positions. Last but not least, let's put it all together. We're going to do a standing snow angel. So again, arms behind our shoulders, arms at shoulder height and overhead. These are vulnerable positions for our arm and our shoulder. So working through that range of motion with constant tension coming from the bands, you're going to feel burning. I literally just did like 5 reps with the easiest resistance that we have here, and I am burning because you're really making muscles work hard at extreme ranges of motion. All right, let's dive into elbow exercises. So again, we're going to be sticking with bands. That constant tension is so good. Now we're getting into a body area where I've actually had issues with my elbows from lifting. And it's if I'm doing free weights, if I'm doing heavy, and I'm moving too fast. So actually, this is an exercise that I do as part of my warm-up for my super bendy hypermobile elbows, and I would recommend it for you to do the same or use it as strengthening. So get a band. You're going to get that band set up around your upper back. And now from here, I'm going to demonstrate on an incline. Just makes it a little bit easier. It's nicer to show for demonstration as well. I want you to get into the top of a push-up position. And now from here, you're mindful of your elbows. I don't want you to be super hyperextended. That's not what you want to do. It's different than the knee. The knee, we actually get into that full extension or hyperextension with functional movements. When it comes to the elbow, hyperextension, weight bearing, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it or force it, versus we just want that clean extension or the tiniest bit of bend where just you're controlling that elbow. It's not completely locked out, but you are using your muscles to maintain that elbow position. So again, don't force hyperextension. May not feel the best. We're going to be really focused on controlling elbow position. Now from there, I'm mindful of my elbows, mindful of the rest of my body. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move from my shoulder blades. We're going to do this incline push-up plus, where I'm mindful of my elbow position, but I'm moving with my shoulder blades. And I can already feel my triceps and my arms are having to work hard to focus on maintaining that good elbow position. And then my upper body, my pecs, my serratus anterior are working to move my shoulder blades. Now you can put it all together and do it with a true push-up. This stuff isn't easy. Like I'm already burning. I can feel my muscles working. If you do it right, you will feel it as well quickly. And now let's just put it all together, like I said, for a full push-up. So lower down, you're going to lose a little bit of tension. That's okay. But now lift up, push against that band, and be mindful of elbow position. I'm not just, boom, hyperextending. That's not going to feel good on my elbows. I'm going to notice that later. Instead, I'm going to lower down controlled, and then I'm going to push away, really push my shoulder blades. Awesome. My elbows are in good position. And then I'm just going to repeat. And I'm going to do that until I get a good muscle workout, a good burn, or I lose form and I start getting form fatigue, and my elbows are going to start getting into a bad position. All right, last one. Let's dive into spine exercises. Last but not least, let's talk about spine exercises. So what's super popular in the rehab and fitness space are exercises like dead bugs or Palloff presses, where we're resisting any motion. It's laying on my back or reaching out and not letting my spine or my core or my trunk move at all. That stuff is important. You got to be able to control and limit spine motion, but those exercises really only focus on bracing and not letting any spine motion happen. The reality is, if you're super bendy, you're able to bend forward, put your palms flat on the ground, your spine can move a lot. If you're only doing exercises where you're not limiting your spine moving, does that carry over to then being able to control your spine moving when you're playing sports, when you're going about your daily activities, picking up grocery bags, you name it? Debatable. So it's good to do both. I still want you to do those exercises, but consider doing these ones as well. So let's start off with controlling bending forward. We're going to do what's called a Jefferson curl. So I have a weight here. I'll get my feet pretty narrow. Just depends on what you feel comfortable with. And now I'm going to grab that weight, stand tall, kind of doing a hip hinge deadlift motion. But now from here, I'm going to move one body area, one segment at a time, nice and slow, actually letting my spine bend. Don't worry, it's okay. You're going to be fine with this. Now from here, just reverse it and keep tension the entire time. Stand tall and repeat. So what you're doing is you're not just bending forward, letting your body uncontrollably bend forward and get your hands to the ground. You are maintaining tension and resisting the weight, but still allowing your body and your spine to bend. This is okay. You can start super light if you're nervous, or even just start body weight and go nice and slow. But this is a great way to learn how to control spinal movement, especially if you're a bendy person. Well, now what do we do about extension? So I have this ball here. It's a 6-pound ball. You can use anything. You can even technically start just reaching body weight with your arms. But now what we're going to do is feet together. I'm going to take this ball up overhead. And now from here, nice and slow, I'm just going to reach backwards and get ready. I'm going to start shaking. I'm shaking because that's my muscles working, trying to stabilize those joints. You should go to the point that you're shaking as long as it doesn't hurt and you can control it. But that is your body, your joints, and your muscles getting feedback, trying to control the motion. You can hear the shakiness in my voice, right? But that's good. I got to be able to do that stuff. If this is really hard for you, you can make it easier. How do you make it easier? Kind of get into the split stance position, reach up overhead, and now go as far as you can. You're letting your abs stretch. We're looking for this nice uniform curve, this rainbow curve with the front of your body. Same thing when we want to bend forward. You want this nice uniform curve. So that you start crushing this, it feels good. You do it on both sides. Nice. Go back to double leg, or if you're feeling spicy, go to one leg where you're reaching back as far as you can. You go, 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 go. And then come back, nice, slow, and controlled with good form. And that's how you're going to be doing exercises and learning how to control your spine, moving into flexion, moving out of extension. You can even get creative and go sideways. You can have fun with it. But don't forget to do exercises that control movements, as well as exercises that limit movement when it comes to your spine. So we covered a lot of awesome stuff today. We learned exercises for the knee, for the shoulders, for the elbow, for the spine. We learned, are you actually bendy or not? How do you test it? How do you assess it? And then most importantly, what are the considerations that you should be thinking of when it comes to exercise selection and your workout routine? Hope you really enjoyed this video. Leave a comment. Let us know what you liked about it. Do you have follow-up questions? Would you like us to do another video related to this topic? Let us know. You drive what we film. We depend on your engagement. So thank you for watching. And until next time, see ya.
Hey prehabbers, if you enjoyed our content, go ahead, like and subscribe.
Or better yet, head over to our website in the description below and check out the dozens of programs that we've created to help you take control of your health today.